Well, I'm going to be a part of a house group, and the stipulation that I have is that we eat together. I want to be part of a house church that kind of centers around food. So, if you're interested, I'm starting a house church, and it's going to be called Foodies. So, anyway, this morning we're going to continue our series, Do You Love Me? And we're talking about the story of Peter and his denial of Christ, and the 3 times that he denies Christ. And then we're taking that story and we're taking it all the way through where Jesus comes to Peter and he says, "Do you love me?" And Peter responds to him, and he asks him 3 times if he loves him. And but today we're kind of in the second part of that. Last week we talked about the denial. We talked about the 3 denials that Peter had with Jesus and that story, and kind of how that story connects with us, and how we deny Jesus, and how sometimes we deny Jesus and we don't even really realize that we're doing it anymore. It just kind of becomes part of our nature, And today we're going to kind of take the next step in that story, but I want to start by telling you a story. And to tell you this story, you have to realize that I grew up, when I was growing up, I kind of grew up, I didn't live on a farm, but I grew up in the country, I don't know if anybody here grew up in the country, but I grew up in the country, and I spent a lot of time in the country, and I was, I wasn't raised by a pack of wolves, but I was raised to kind of know my way around in the woods, Even though I started this at a very young age, I never did get really good at it. I oftentimes would get lost, and I would oftentimes, in fact, we kind of started this thing that I didn't realize, but, my dad would let me go out on my own, and we'd be hunting or camping or hiking or fishing or something like that, and he would say, "Okay, you go this way and I'm going to go this way, and we're going to meet at this end, and we're going to do this and all that, So we would do that, but what he would do is he would send me off into this direction, he would wait a few minutes, and then he would follow me, because I was notorious for getting lost, and and then I would be out there and I'd be yelling and shooting up in the air, "I'm lost," all this sort of thing. Lots of bad things happen, and so I kind of became notorious for this, among my family. And I remember one time a few years ago, not too long ago, I was 30 years old, so I'm a grown man at this time, I should be getting lost, but, I'm in a new part of the woods, that I had never been in before, and we were hunting. It was early in the morning, it was snowing, it was cold, and all of that, and so I'm sitting in this tree, and it's time for me to get down to go find the rest of the hunters, and so I get down and I'm walking, and I start off in the direction that the guy told me to go, that's going to lead me to where the truck is, because that's the goal, is to get back to the truck. And so he said, just follow this fence and then keep on walking. And well, I was following the fence, and then the fence ended. And so I kept on walking, and I don't know if you've ever been out walking in the woods, not on a path, just walking on the woods. It's very easy to turn and not know that you turned, or it's even easy to get turned all the way around and not even realize that you have been turned around, and so I'm walking, and the fence ends, and lo and behold, I turn, and not realizing that I had turned, not supposed to have turned, but I turned, and I'm walking, 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 and I'm up these hills and down these hills, and I'm through this creek, and I'm over this fence, and I'm doing all of this stuff. And if you ever cross a fence in the woods, and you're not supposed to cross the fence, that means you're in someone else's property, okay? So that's just a little thing you need to know. But so I'm walking, and I'm walking, and I'm walking, and all of a sudden I just stop. And by this point, even though it's snowing outside and it's cold, I have all these clothes on, I'm just sweating. Have you ever had that where you're like out in the cold, but you've been working really hard, and you're just sweating, and I'm winded, and I'm breathing heavy, and I'm looking around, and I start to think, I should be there by now. The truck should be here by now. I should be seeing something right now, and I don't. I'm still clearly in the middle of the woods, like I can't even see the edge of the woods where the truck might be, So I'm completely turned around, And I'm completely, I just don't know where I am. I mean, let's just be honest, I don't know where I am, And so I started thinking about what to do. And this is the true story. I couldn't make this up if I tried. I'm sitting there, and I have my bow right here because I was an archery hunter, and I was leaning on it, and I'm holding on to this tree, and I'm trying to catch my breath, and then all of a sudden I hear, psst. And I'm thinking, what was that? If you're in the woods and you're all by yourself, you don't want to hear noises that you weren't expecting, So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear, psst. And then it comes again, psst. So I start looking around, and I'm looking, and I can't see where this noise is coming from. But the more it happens, the more it makes me think it's a person, saying, psst, trying to get my attention. And I cannot find this person. Finally, this person says, look up, And so I look straight up, and my dad and my little brother are the tree that I'm leaning against, they're in the tree that I'm leaning against. It was the weirdest thing, of course my dad is like this, here we go again with Nate, And I'm just leaning, and I'm leaning, and I know I'm supposed to be somewhere, but I'm just in the wrong place. And I look up, and what are the chances? I mean, this is the honest truth. You can ask my dad, it's the truth. I am leaning on the tree that he is in. Now, on the other side of the tree is a ladder, right? That would go up into the tree. I didn't see the ladder. I don't know if I was just so exhausted. I don't know if I was just so oblivious. I don't know what it was, but I didn't see the ladder. I didn't see their footprints walking in the snow to the tree. There were so many signs that I just didn't see. And here I was. How did I walk right to that tree? I still don't know the answer to that question. It was almost as if there was some sort of internal thing guiding my lost little soul to this tree, And there I was, and I just found myself lost, And I found myself needing some direction. I found myself needing some rest. I found myself needing some hope. And little did I know that I'm standing up against a tree where my dad and my little brother are up in the tree. And so if I get with my dad, I know I'm going to find my way out, And so I just had this chance, or had this opportunity where I walked right up to the rest. I walked right up to the direction. I walked right up to the answer to what I needed. And I didn't even see him there. I didn't even realize that the very tree that I'm leaning on, he was in that tree. And how many times does that happen with us in every different part of our life? Where we walk right up to the answer, and we can't even see it. And this kind of speaks to the second part of our story here. And I want to read it. And last week we started in John chapter 18, and this week we're going to jump forward a few chapters. And because basically, not to make light of it, because it's certainly not to be made light of, but chapters 19 and 20 are the crucifixion of Christ and the resurrection of Christ. So we're just going to kind of skip over that today. Okay. So we go from Peter's denial, and then comes chapter 19 and chapter 20, which is the death of Christ, the crucifixion of Christ. And this brings us to chapter 21. And I'm going to read the first 4 verses, and we're going to look at that. So, John chapter 21, verses 1 through 4, this is what it said. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, which is, where Diddy gets his name, right? Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them. Now, let's just think about this for a second. Simon Peter, who's the crux of our story here. Simon Peter, who's the one this story is about. Because remember, a few chapters before, Peter has denied Jesus and hasn't seen him since. Okay, so the last interaction that Peter has with Jesus is denying him. And we talked about that last week, about how, he was given every opportunity to claim him, even up to the last one where on the third person they said, I know that I've seen you with him. You cut off the ear of my cousin or my relative or something, You cut off the ear to my relative, and Jesus healed his ear. Aren't you the one? And Peter said, no. The guy knew.